Welcome, everyone, to another great night of the Four Guys Roundtable Show with my cohorts, Dr. Pat, Coach Jeremy, AJ Nitro, and moi. I don't have a name tonight, just moi. There we go. So tonight we will be talking about two specific pay-per-views from 1996, the year I graduated high school. You know, damn depressing that sounds right about now. Yes, it does. But
that was a long time ago. It was.
Yeah. The year is 1996. The top movie is Independence Day.
Jeremy, when did you graduate?
96.
Yeah, I was gonna say Jeremy also that year.
So depressing. Yes, but anyway,
I was a freshman / sophomore.
Oh, you youngins.
You could go eat a big fat one.
My older sister graduated high school in 96.
I feel her pain. Okay. Other than that, so as I was saying, we're comparing two pay-per-views from 1996, King of the Ring and Bash at the Beach. But until then, hello to everyone out in podcast world. How are we doing tonight?
Well, I'm doing wonderful.
We're here.
It's 2020, so, everything sucks.
Well, I can feel the enthusiasm in the air tonight. That's wonderful. I'm enjoying it.
Especially our college football team this year, Joe. They suck.
Who would that be? I don't know. I don't know who that is anymore. College football. What's college football? I remember they have colors that are like dark red, maroon, but for the life of me, I can't remember what the name of that college football team is right now.
Hey, one of my college football teams didn't play today because
the COVID.
The whole team came down with it? Holy shit.
Something like 7 people. So
fantastic.
Out of an abundance of caution, or whatever terminology you want to give it, they postponed the game. I think they're going to play it in like December. And it's like, whatever.
Yeah. They're going to be playing lots of college football in December this year.
Well, yes. That's not just because of the way the Big Ten and Pac-12 are going to be doing their fucking schedules now, but I kind of suspect this isn't going to be the only COVID outbreak you're going to see. So
no. Probably
it's just gonna be a cluster, and I honestly think they need to be a little flexible with saying we may have to push the playoff and bowl schedule back a few weeks.
Yeah, we'll see. It'll be interesting. My Saturday, since we always do these on a Saturday, I was fixing a sink today. Yes, that was a lot of fun.
How wet did you get?
I didn't get. I know better than to have things running when I'm doing the sink, but it was a pain because there's a nut that connects to the bottom of, there's a nut.
Jeremy is the king of the nuts.
Yes. So there is a nut.
I'll leave it alone tonight. So leave it be.
What happens is people love to use plumber's putty on the nuts that, and the everything that screws together on plumbing. They love to use plumber's putty. That's like the old school thing. Use plumber's putty. It'll keep it from leaking. You're right. It will. But it also gums up all the threading on all the screw threads. So this thing was frozen shut. So I ended up finding a YouTube video that said, try vinegar on that, and it should dissolve like all the minerals and stuff like that. And thank God it did, because I'm telling you, I had 2 lock wrenches on that son of a bitch, and I could not fucking move it. I'm like going both directions with, one on each thing, trying to move this thing, and it just, oh my God, I was so pissed off. But once I got it done, wasn't so bad because I cleaned it all up and all that stuff. But then of course there's a plastic, I guess you could call it like seal that you put in there. And evidently I put it in upside down because I couldn't get it to stop leaking. And then I was like, call my dad. He's like, yeah, try it this way. I was like, so I tried it that way, and now it's not leaking. So thank God that's done. That was a pain in the balls. Like, I hate working with plumbing because it's like you put everything back together. You're like, all right, it's ready to go. When you turn it on, it's like, it's fucking leaking still. God damn it.
It's always harder to get it done than it seems. Like you think, this is going to be simple. Yeah, probably not.
Well, and all my plumbing always seems to be underneath the sink, so it's like fit your fat ass underneath this counter and try and wiggle through shit. I'm like, oh God. Like I praise plumbers because they put their bodies in some of the worst positions, and like it's a pain in the ass most of the time. So that was my like Saturday morning, afternoon.
There you go.
Okay, I do just have one question for you though.
Yes, sir.
Why didn't you answer my original question? I asked you a specific question, and you went into this whole thing about fixing your sink. All I asked was, how wet did you get?
I didn't get wet at all.
I think you're lying to us.
Nope.
I think you're lying to yourself.
I didn't even get under the sink. I was able to reach it without having to get under the sink.
Again, what does the sink have to do with this?
Jesus. I'm not going to answer or
like
entertain your question.
Children.
I'm not going to entertain your question. I will not entertain it.
So Theo, you were disappointed last week because you didn't get to tell us a couple of stories. Do you want to throw one of those at us now?
No, it'll take forever. They are not 2-minute stories. They're not even 5-minute stories.
You can tell us one of them.
One will be 20 minutes. Yes. So we'll save that for a later day in the future. No worries.
Save that for one of our other pornographic podcasts.
Open mic night. Let's go.
Pat's favorite.
Yes.
So yeah.
Yes, they are, Pat. You like them, don't you? Yes. He's shaking his head. Yes.
Fair enough.
Gives him something to aspire to.
Yes.
One day.
It's what he wants to be when he grows up, just like us.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
I have nothing to look forward to in life. So.
We're great role models. Come on now.
It's got to be something. I got to pick something.
Yes.
Well, evidently a lot of wrestlers not anymore are not good role models because they're all freaking coming out of the woodwork with their freaking inappropriateness.
Well, I mean, that's nothing new. I mean, if you go back through the history, I'm pretty sure you can find that almost every wrestler was a scumbag in some way, shape, or form. It's just to which degree and for what reason. So.
It's just put out there in the front lines for everybody to see now.
Yeah.
Which is fantastic.
Social media.
It's also, it's also just because, like, you're not going to get away with shit. Like, you could get away with that kind of stuff in the 70s, 80s, 90s, but now with social media, you do something to somebody, somebody's going to go on social media and say, hey, blah, 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 did this and that to me. So, maybe don't do that.
Just to let you know, there, AJ, that is the worst looking $100 bill I've ever seen.
That's fabulous.
I can't even tell who's on it. Is that the Young Bucks or somebody else?
No, it's the Bucks.
I was just taking a wild guess because your head's covering half of it.
I don't think that would be accepted as legal tender at most business establishments.
I don't know. I'd like to see somebody give one of those big $100 bills like that. Here's $100 bill.
Well, no, they when they come out at the events, they shoot the money out that looks like that.
Mm-hmm.
People think they're getting real money, and then they see that it just has the Bucks faces on them and go, motherfucker.
I mean,
it's probably all that money they've been throwing around on the shows lately, the big stacks.
Yeah, it probably is made up of that.
This is your Young Bucks money. It's worth it. Here, Tony Khan, throw it at you.
I think the whole promotion was at the football game the other night.
Oh, they probably were. Saw pictures of good old JR and Jericho rocking their Jaguars jerseys or jersey and apparel. They probably get front row seats in the suites just chilling. I'd take it. I wouldn't complain.
No, I wouldn't either. I mean, Jacksonville got their ass kicked.
Still watching football, getting some good stuff.
That's about normal. Doesn't Jacksonville usually get their ass kicked?
I mean, they threw in the towel already, traded like a bunch of their team away before the season started. So,
yeah,
that's bad ownership, and bad management. Yeah, well, what are you gonna do?
We can say R.I.P. to Road Warrior Animal.
Absolutely.
Did he pass away now? Finally.
Yes.
Finally,
That was the wrong word. Sorry, wrong choice of words.
Jeremy was waiting for it.
I mean, if it's somebody who's had like several near-death experiences, then you could be like, "Oh, he's finally died."
Not him though.
This is the wrong choice of words, okay? But I am.
Or if it's somebody
he finally died. No, I'm just kidding.
Or if it's somebody who was a piece of shit, you could say, "Oh, good, he finally died."
Well, who knows? He might have been a piece of shit. We don't know. Nobody knows him personally.
I've never really heard that about him, so.
No, neither have I. But that was just the wrong choice of words. I didn't mean to say finally. I meant to say, he died.
Not really heard bad things. He's been more of a guy you hear good things about, not bad things. So
yeah. Now, like if you were to hear that like Jake Roberts passed away, you could say, "Oh, he finally died because of his numerous drug issues throughout the years." And if Ric Flair were to die, you could say it about him because he's had some serious health scares recently, where he's been like in the hospital. Like I think at one time they even said he was damn close to death. So it's like those guys. If you were to hear that they died, you could be like, "Oh, they finally died."
And his kid was a good football player. He didn't pick the right college to attend, but other than that, he was a good football player. So
his NFL career seemed a little short
when he picked his college football player.
His NFL career seemed a little short too.
Where did he go to college football? Where did he play his college football?
He went to the black hole in the middle of the state, better known as Ohio State.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
My least favorite. There is more than one college football team I don't like. That is my least favorite of all of them, though. We will clarify that for sure. That is probably the team I hate the most in all of sports. Is probably that team.
Well, you mentioned your football team, and I know your college football team that you love is Florida State. So I was thinking maybe he went to Miami because you hate them because of being a Florida State fan.
I do.
Florida, but no.
Ohio,
the Gators.
Ohio State is always going to be the team I probably refer to the most with dislike. Generally, they're the one, especially on this one, because Pat doesn't like them and Joe doesn't particularly like them, and even you don't particularly care for them. So I bring them up because none of you guys really like them. So I'm not going to get any lashback from you guys because nobody on here really likes them. So
no, definitely not an Ohio State fan.
Red and crimson, come on.
Yeah. I'll always say this about Ohio State, and that is I don't know how you can cheat so much and still be in title pictures every year without any sanctions that prevent it. I'll never understand it, but that's college football.
Well, I mean, the guy last year, admitted to taking money, and they suspended him for 2 games. That's it. And he was still in the Heisman running. In 99, when Peter Warrick got a suit for $40, he got suspended for 2 games, and he was automatically not in the Heisman Trophy for something that happened off the field. So how is that any different from what happened a year ago? I was really upset because they're like, oh, well, he took money and he admitted it, so we're going to suspend him for 2 games and still vilify him like he didn't do anything wrong. But when Peter Warrick took a suit for an 80% discount that any of the rest of us on this podcast would have also taken that suit for an 80% discount, he got in trouble and got vilified like he was a criminal.
Yeah,
so
he could have been on the clearance rack.
So
that was schools today and they have an 80% clearance rack.
So I didn't like that when that happened with that guy from there a year ago. I felt like they were nice to him, and they shouldn't have been nice to him for doing that.
No, the sanctions should be the same. If you commit the same crime, so to say, or offense, however you want to put it, the time should be the same. Same kind of punishment. Don't change it just because you feel like, oh, well, he did the right thing by admitting it. Who cares? He still did it. It doesn't matter if you said, I'm sorry or not. You still did it. The sanction is the sanction. I mean, we know they're never going to do like they did to, and help me out here because I don't know I can't remember the name of the college, but it was in Texas, and they got essentially
SMU.
Yeah, thank you, SMU.
The death penalty.
Yeah,
right.
The death penalty.
Well, see, that was the whole thing. They gave SMU the death penalty back there in the late 80s, and it so destroyed the program. And I mean, it really continued. I mean, SMU when was it, like the next time they became competitive? I don't think was for like another like 20 years or so years, or maybe even more than that. I don't remember exactly how long. But because they gave SMU the death penalty, and because it was so destructive, which I don't think that they even really had fully anticipated, there was talk that Kentucky basketball was looking at the death penalty
back then,
like a year or two after SMU football got it.
Mm-hmm.
But they were already seeing how negative the effects were, that somebody said, maybe we shouldn't actually do that. And they didn't. Kentucky basketball didn't get it. And I think the only other time I ever really heard any serious talk of somebody getting the death penalty was to Penn State because of the Sandusky scandal, which it's like on one hand, I totally would have understood that, even though I'm a Penn State fan. I mean, I totally would have understood, hey, the program let this shit happen and blah, blah, blah. But again, I think they said that they probably would have gotten sued ridiculously by the school and by other people, which they probably would have lost. And I think they said they felt like it probably wasn't worth it. So.
Well, and here's the thing, like.
So I don't think you'll ever see anybody get the death penalty again.
No, and I think
to be so egregious.
Like, and here's the thing with that. What they did is with the death penalty, which was messed up. You can do all the other things, but I think taking away their TV rights was probably the worst part of it, because now nobody even knows that team exists because you can't even see them on TV. They blacked them out for that 2-year sanction. And, you could still have, like, if they did the sanction where they said, okay, I forget what the total thing is. It had to do with their ability to bring in players. I know they had no bowl games for those 2 years. But you could do all that stuff where they're not allowed to actively recruit anybody. People just have to come to their college. Like, they can't recruit anybody, and take away their bowl games. And that college can still survive. But once you took away the TV rights, and they should never do that to a college. But do the other things. Like, I think that's fine. Like, if you commit an egregious violation of NCAA rules, do that shit. Take that stuff away from people. Just don't take away their TV. Let people see them, but don't allow them to recruit, and don't allow them to participate in bowl games. Yeah.
Or
scholarships too. Cut the scholarships.
Yeah, scholarships get cut. Like, anything that allows them to build their program, cut it. But let them be on TV so people can see, hey, this is what happens when you mess up and you violate NCAA rules. Now look at what happens. Then maybe people would start to wise up a little bit. I mean, they would still cheat. People are always going to cheat because every college wants to get ahead. But it might prevent it some to say, well, people won't be so outlandish with what they're going to do to get people to cheat.
Well, that's just it, too. It's like people – I think people are always going to look for shortcuts. I mean, that's life. I mean, life is hard, so people will look for shortcuts to take and exploit when they can. And I think that, a lot of it is ego and arrogance, in the sense that they feel like they're trying to cheat in a way that nobody else has ever thought of, or that they're just like, I just won't get caught. I'll be able to stay one step ahead, or I'll be able to like funnel it, or I'm not sure what the term I'm looking for here is, like have like enough like intermediaries and like third parties that actually doing everything, so that it won't ever actually come back to me or something like that. But it's like eventually they seem to catch up with you, and it's like if the NCAA is able to catch up with you, then that means you weren't very good at doing what you did, because the NCAA is not like the government. They can't like subpoena people and force them to like testify and give evidence and shit like that. So if the NCAA is actually catching it, then you didn't do a very good job of doing it.
Yeah. All right. So should we get started with this podcast, this crazy ass thing that we do call a podcast?
I think so, because I don't know how long this is going to take. I think we'd like to bring it in, shorter than longer. So
yeah.
Should I have brought my pillow?
Shorter rather than longer. That's not what she said.
What did you say, Joe?
I just said, should I have brought my pillow with me?
Well, hopefully not.
No, you should not. You should not have a My Pillow.
I mean, I needed a pillow when I was watching the pay-per-views personally, but that's just me. So.
Yes, we're going to talk about that, and some of it was pretty bad. But tonight, our moderator for tonight, since he is our resident historian I like to consider him our resident historian on all things wrestling, is going to be Darth Pat. I will not be moderating this or mediating this conversation. But I do want to start off, before we get started, with just a quick public service announcement, and that's to say thank you to everybody that is tuning in and watching. We do appreciate you guys every time stopping in, seeing the podcast, whether you're catching it on YouTube, you're catching it on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, or even now on Amazon Music, because you can find it by talking to your Alexa device if you have an Alexa device. But if you are catching on YouTube, please make sure you're hitting that notification, setting up the dings so you get notified every time, subscribing to our station, as well as give this episode a like if you like it, or any of the other episodes that you've watched. Give them a like and drop us a comment. You can find us on Twitter at 4 Guys with a Z Roundtable. As well as always stay tuned for the Mount Rushmore, which will be based on tonight's episode, which is the 96 Bash at the Beach and the 96 King of the Ring. All right, Darth Pat, take it away. Tell us what we're doing.
All right, so what we're doing is, in trying to come up with topics that are a little different for the show, we thought it'd be fun to look at some shows that, we're kind of on at the same time. Now, my original idea for this was something that was rejected, but I intend to revisit it at some point in the future. So I'm not going to say what that was. I'm just going to keep you all in suspense. You just have to feel it. But so anyway, we kind of realized that there were two pay-per-views that were run by the two rival companies, the World Wrestling Federation and World Championship Wrestling, that both featured very historical moments in the history of pro wrestling that happened just weeks apart. They did not happen the same night because those companies were never stupid enough to run pay-per-views against each other.
That would have been interesting.
Okay, actually, wait. They were, but that was a few years prior. Anyway, so these pay-per-views did not occur at the same time. So again, it was King of the Ring 1996, which was from WWF, and Bash at the Beach 1996, which was from WCW. So we're going to start with King of the Ring because that came first. So King of the Ring 1996 was the fourth King of the Ring pay-per-view event that WWF ran. They had started it as a fifth pay-per-view in 1993. Mostly because the gap between WrestleMania and SummerSlam was too long. At least that was the way I always perceived it. You guys?
I agree with you on that.
But of course, by 1996, they're also now running the monthly In Your House pay-per-view. So every pay-per-view is feeling, a little diminished here and there. But King of the Ring 1996, June 23rd, 1996, it aired from the Mecca in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Yeah, that's a Mecca.
Yes.
Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Yeah, makes sense. Before a listed attendance of 8,762, Vince, of course, on the telecast said it was a sellout. You never really know for sure. The arena looked pretty full, so
it did.
I'll go along with it. So, gonna just kind of start going into this. We're just gonna cover the matches in order as they aired. The funny thing is that the pay-per-view begins with Owen Hart's music playing in the arena, which might have been surprising to people who had tuned in because Owen Hart was not on the card. Owen was doing commentary along with Vince and JR. Because Jerry Lawler was in a match that night, they figured they needed to have a heel announcer, so they brought Owen, who was not on the card, in to do some announcing. And as an announcer, let me just say Owen was a wrestler.
Yeah, but know what?
He did okay.
Good. He was good. I found him entertaining.
He was fine. He was fine.
But he did.
Just because of the fact that he's sitting next to Vince, so he's really not being produced in that sense. You can tell that he didn't really have somebody screaming in his ear because there's one part. There was two things that Owen did that I thought were kind of funny. One was that in the first match, he talked about how Mark Merrow had a lot of heart and a lot of resiliency because a lesser man would have succumbed, and then Austin puts him in a Boston Crab, and Owen starts calling him a gutless quitter when he, which of course any wrestler does. So 1 minute, he's got a great heart. Next minute, look at that, he's a gutless quitter. And
the reverse course on that so quick he did.
Yeah, and he kind of, your mileage may vary if you want to call it a slip, but he referred to Vader as Big Van Vader a couple of times, which of course was Vader's kind of original name. But Vader had stopped referring to himself as Big Van Vader even in the second half of his WCW run. So it was kind of funny that now he's in WWF and he called him Big Van Vader. Now, Owen wasn't terrible. There's definitely been worse guest commentators, but I just,
He called Sonny a hose bag. That was hilarious.
That was funny.
He had a lot of comments that you could hear Lawler saying that don't really work well. Like comments that he would make about Sable, comments that he made about Jose Lothario. I'm not going to repeat them, but I think you could probably guess what they are in saying that here we are now 24 years later saying that they're comments.
He did say something improper about Jose Lothario. He 100% did.
Yeah, I think he said he should go back to where the hell did it?
He just kept calling him a Mexican in a derogatory manner. He might have added a couple other adjectives before the word Mexican. I don't remember 100%.
Yeah, but then he doesn't say he should go back to Mexico. He tells him he should go back to somewhere else. I forget what country he said, but it was a Hispanic country, but it wasn't Mexico.
You can definitely tell like the time. You can definitely be like, well, if Owen said half the shit he said on there, now he'd probably get in trouble. So
there'd be like so much social media backlash within. Well, as in real time, like as he was saying it. So
he did okay though. Like he did, like you said, Pat. There's been way worse wrestlers who have been in the commentary booth that have struggled.
Well, not even just like necessarily wrestlers. Didn't they have like Football Hall of Famer Art Donovan do guest commentary? I think at one of the King of the Rings, and he was so terrible that Monsoon and Savage, I think it was, who were calling the pay-per-view, just basically started ignoring him.
Yeah.
But I think it was something like he was like asking constantly, how much does this guy weigh? All right, so anyway, so the pay-per-view itself, it begins with the first King of the Ring semifinal match, which is Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Wild Man Mark Marrow with Sable. Now, one other interesting note, this was the first year of the King of the Ring where they only did the semifinal and final matches.
They didn't do the whole tournament. They didn't do the whole tournament.
Well, not even like the whole tournament, because even with the first three tournaments, as I went back when I was doing some research, they had like qualifying matches.
Right, but they didn't. They usually did 3 rounds. They did 3 rounds.
They did like the quarterfinals, semifinals, and final, all within the span of the pay-per-view. The first 3 King of the Rings. They didn't do that here in '96. So, hey, it allowed for them to do more other matches, as we'll get to. So, Austin against Marrow. It's kind of funny to hear Austin come to the ring without hearing the glass shattering, without hearing the familiar music,
corny ringmaster music. It was corny. It was bad.
Without him wearing the vest. That's all kind of funny. It's also, of course, very funny to hear Owen talk positively about Austin, since we know the rivalry. Of course, that would be pretty much all of 1997. So the match was kind of back and forth. Marrow would get the advantage a few times. Austin would constantly duck to the outside to break up the momentum, typical heel move. Austin was using like slower, more methodical, like power moves to keep the advantage. They even said to keep Marrow grounded. At one point, Austin got busted open kind of the hard way in his mouth. He was very clearly bleeding from his mouth. I think they would even say later he had to go get stitches
16.
Before coming back. But the finish of the match finally comes when Austin does kind of like a modified hot shot. He kind of like hangs Marrow up on the ropes by flipping him onto it. And then he hits the stunner just by hitting the stunner. It wasn't, quite the stunner as we know here. Got first.
It was the early stages of the stunner.
Yeah, it's still definitely the stunner, but it didn't have the same impact. It wasn't like bringing the crowd to its feet kind of move, which of course it would become.
Well, he didn't have the setup kick yet. That was what was missing.
Yep. Yeah, because after he did the other move to Marrow, he pretty much just picked Marrow up and just, down.
Yeah.
And that was it. So the match went a total of 16 minutes and 49 seconds.
It was decent. It was a decent match. I liked it.
Decent length opening match.
Yeah.
I thought it was decent. Although I think that it was a little slow at times and maybe it could have been a little bit faster paced. I mean, because it wasn't like Austin was some, like slow fat guy. in
Right.
terms of like his speed and everything, But at the same time, I think they were trying to work him as a heel a certain way. So,
you could tell.
yeah. So good old Dave Meltzer. I'm going to refer to this throughout the night just as a reference point. Meltzer gave the match 3 3/4 stars. I'd probably go a little bit lower, but not much lower. I thought it was a decent opener. Any other thoughts?
I thought for an opening match at this time period, it was really top notch. Like, if you look at the time period of matches and how pay-per-views went, I thought it was a top notch match. Now, watching it now, it would be an average opening match.
Yeah. You can see the ups and downs and like I talked to AJ about this the other day, and I don't know if I said this before to you guys, but it just some of the moves and the rest holds and then
there was a lot of rest holds in that match. There was like 5, I think.
The semi suplex that I still don't understand what that was. Let's get him up and let's go back and be like, I don't feel like falling.
I watched for it. He did just kind of toss him. He didn't completely fall backwards on the suplex. He kind of dropped him.
It was like, I'm going to do a suplex, but I'm a little tired now. I don't feel like doing this. I'm just going to go backwards and fall.
I was watching for it when I was watching it. I was like, what is that?
I was like, what am I have played it like 5, 6 times. I was like, what the hell is he really doing? Like, is he meant to do that? I think he really meant to do that. Like, I don't feel like taking the suplex right now. I'm just going to, pick him up and just toss him on his back and be done. Then move on.
Mero was a pretty good worker. So, I think he was better in WCW because I think the Johnny B. Bad character worked better than the Mark Mero. He ended up getting overshadowed by Sable, and it's not his fault. Like, I think he was a pretty good worker, and I don't think WWE really ever used him the right way. I thought he was underused.
I agree with you. I mean, when you go back and you look at his run as Johnny B. Bad, I always thought he was pretty entertaining. You could say the gimmick was a little ridiculous, and maybe it was, but I've also heard stories that probably came from Bruce Pritchard, that when they brought him in, I guess Vince thought they were getting Johnny B. Bad. Like, they didn't realize that he did not own the character.
Okay.
So they came up with, they didn't really know quite how to book him, and I think that kind of comes off as pretty evident, because that's the thing. He's got Sable with him here, and he's using the music that really then became Sable's music, but he's not being overshadowed by Sable yet. There's a few like Sable chants, but it wasn't the way Sable would become within like a year or so or everything. And I really feel like they kind of screwed up with Mero. They could have used him a lot better. I think they even said this was his first loss since he had come over to WWF.
They did.
So I always feel like that there was probably more that they could have done with him than they did.
Yeah.
All right, so moving on. The next match was our second King of the Ring semifinal. Before that, we had a brief interview of Doc Hendricks. And I just want to make a quick comment about Doc Hendricks, because, as we all know, it's Michael Hayes.
Yes.
But Michael Hayes with short hair and with just a mustache without the beard. And he kind of went back and forth between if he was supposed to be a heel or a face. At this event, at least, he's a face. I just always feel like the whole thing of Doc Hendricks was kind of ridiculous. It was it
was bad.
Why Vince wouldn't just let him be Michael Hayes is kind of a mystery to me, but okay. So anyway, so Doc is interviewing Jake the Snake Roberts, and Jake, of course, was doing the whole big comeback gimmick in '96, where he was also, talking about, how turning to the Lord had helped him overcome his addictions.
Clean.
Yeah, I mean, we all know the story.
Yes.
He did some Bible talk in the promo, but there was still a certain compellingness. I'm not sure if that's really a word. To what he was saying. You could still feel yourself getting drawn in, because he still had the same cadence and rhythm, the way that he talked and everything. So you could still feel yourself buying a little, but the promo was very short. So and then he goes out to wrestle Vader Time. Vader, of course, with Jim Cornette. This match went 3 minutes 34 seconds.
Thank God it only went 3 minutes and 34 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, they talked about how Jake was still suffering from a rib injury from his, I think it was his quarterfinal match with Justin Hawk Bradshaw. And so they just, it kind of goes back and forth. Not really much is happening. Owen saying the only way Jake's going to win is if he gets Vader into a DDT. And sure enough, he's able to get Vader into a DDT. But as soon as he hits it and as soon as they hit the mat, the referee comes up and calls for the bell because somehow on his way down, Vader shoved the referee. So it's a bullshit DQ finish.
It was bad.
On a very short match, which was not going to be good under any circumstance because, like they've said, it's, a 41-year-old Jake Roberts against Vader. That's probably not a matchup that's going to produce good results for you. I mean, Jake, by his own admission, said he was so out of shape at this point. That's why he wore that ridiculous vest all the time. To hide the fact that he had ballooned up and weighed.
When you watch the replay, I watched the replay and I'm like, it doesn't even look like Vader really did anything that bad. Like, it was bad.
It was really the kind of thing that you would refer to, I think, as like incidental contact. I mean, the fact that it drew a DQ was kind of stupid.
They could have found a better way to make that DQ happen than that, I felt like.
They could have used Cornette in some capacity to make that a more legitimate DQ than, hey, I hit your pinky. Sorry, ref. You're so hard.
But, of course, the whole reason for the DQ finishes is so that Vader could beat on Jake after the match, further injuring his ribs, which would progress into the final then. And they did the whole thing again where a ton of referees came out and tried to calm Vader down. And after, Cornette, of course, was first, keeping the match ref trapped in the corner as Vader continued to beat on Jake. Now when, 6 refs are in the ring, Cornette's now trying to calm Vader down and make sure he doesn't attack a referee and get suspended again. That's what they did earlier in the year when he attacked Gorilla Monsoon.
He also pushed Jim Cornette, he threw Jim Cornette, didn't he?
Yes, he did. And then after the match was over, this is kind of cool that they have this on the network. They had a couple of those old Coliseum video exclusive.
Yes.
Cornette and Vader are back in the dressing room, and Cornette's ranting and raving about how
they're in the bathroom. They were actually in the bathroom.
And then Vader comes up and practically starts choking out Cornette. He's like, you get beat! I'm the king of the ring! And nobody beats Vader. And Cornette's looking terrified, going, I know! You're the king of the ring! You're the king of the ring!
Those Coliseum exclusives were awesome back in the day.
Meltzer gave this match a 1/4 star.
I agree.
That's about right.
I can't disagree much with that.
Good job, Meltzer. Got one right. All right, there you go, buddy.
Yeah, I think when Vader was supposed to get DQ'd, I think he missed his cue for the ref, whatever he was supposed to do to the ref.
Maybe
I
it was supposed to be something different, you think?
Yes.
Yeah, I think it was. I thought about that too.
That was bad. Let's just say that match was not good, and the ending was even worse. So.
Yeah. All right. So our next match then is a tag team title match between the Godwins and the Smoking Guns. Now,
I like this match.
The Rednecks.
The story behind this match is basically that Sonny has basically. How do I put this delicately? Screw delicateness. They were basically saying that Sonny was a whore for the tag team titles. She was basically following along whoever had the tag belts.
I still got the title, she says at the end of the match.
Because she had been with the Body Donnas, and then when they lost to the Godwins, they were doing this thing where she was
flirting with Phineas.
Flirting with Phineas, and then they showed the match from when the Guns beat the Godwins for the titles, whenever, I don't remember if it was at the prior pay-per-view or whatever, but Billy Gunn laid one on Sonny, and so Sonny then went with the Guns when they won the title, and it's like, was she just setting up Phineas all along? It wasn't really clear, and I don't remember because I wasn't watching at that time. So anyway, the Godwins actually got a pretty good pop when they came out, so I guess that proves Vince's belief that hillbillies are just always popular.
That's 80% of the fan base at that time. So
yeah, well, I mean, hey, they had Hillbilly Jim and his family back in the mid '80s there and everything. So this was like the second version. Obviously, Hillbilly Jim was managing the Godwins at this time.
Yes.
So as the Godwins are coming out, Hendrix is backstage with the Guns and Sonny, but they're talking mostly about Cloudy.
awful.
Who was the
Cloudy is
Donna's
scary
manager, and I can't remember the guy's name, but he was obviously a guy in drag. He was apparently a friend of Chris Candido, but they were making it all about
Pat's future lady friend.
No, they were making it all about tension between Sunny and Cloudy, and it's like if Sunny had ditched the Bodwins because they were losers, why, or the Body Donnas because they were losers? It's like, why should she even care? I don't know. The funny thing about
that was weird.
The funny thing too about this promo is when they tried to, turn it over to Billy Gunn to say a line, he totally messed it up.
Oh my god, it was so bad.
One of our good mutual friends was always a big Billy Gunn fan, and I think we all kind of made fun of him for the fact that Billy Gunn's promo skills were minuscule at best. So this was kind of proof of that.
Actually, neither of them, Bart or Billy, neither of them was stellar.
I mean, obviously Bart Gunn, because he never got to do anything really much after the Guns broke up. So
yeah, I was trying to figure out what Billy Gunn was trying to say when he was. I'm like, what is? What's?
I see.
What?
You tried to figure it out. I'm just like, oh, it's Billy Gunn. Who gives a shit? But anyway, while the match is going on, they cut to a brief interview.
Oh my god, it was bad. That was scary and terrible.
Blows a kiss to Vince and JR, to which Owen found hilarious.
Creepy. That's what that was.
It's one thing to do like a picture-in-picture interview during like an episode of Raw, to doing it during a pay-per-view. Kind of tells you all you need to know about the match. And I will say, and I will also say this about this match: there was way too much denim involved.
There was a lot of denim.
The Guns are wearing
Canadian tuxedos. What's going on?
Yeah, the Guns are wearing jeans. The Godwins are wearing the overalls and hillbilly Jims and denim from head to toe outside. So. The Guns mostly controlled the match. They were basically putting over the fact that they were really much more arrogant and that they were cheating. Like, Billy Gunn did a cheap shot when Henry got whipped into the ropes. They were like very being nonchalant with the pins, which even Owen was criticizing them for. There were a couple times where the Godwins got the advantage, but not very much. And then the finish came when Bart hit Phineas in the head with a removed boot. I don't even know whose boot it was at that point. And then Billy got the pin. Own boot. Yeah, and then Billy got the pin. That was it. Match went 10 minutes, 10 seconds. Meltzer said 1.25 stars. To me, this match was just like, I understood why it was on the card, but I didn't find much to care about.
So I'm going to be completely different to probably most of you guys. I actually really enjoyed this match. I thought overall it was an entertaining match, because here's the thing. We've all watched a lot of big guy matches, and let's be honest, this was really a big guy match. Yeah. Because the Godwins are big guys. But the thing about it is they were able to do stuff. Like, it wasn't just like body slams and punches and stuff like that. There was other things in it that, because Billy and Bart were still bigger guys, but they were more athletic, so they could do some things, and the Godwins could kind of help with that. So I actually found this match better than what Meltzer did, just because it wasn't your typical big man match like we're going to talk about in some other matches.
I liked the Godwins back then. I liked them. I never liked the Smoking Guns. I never liked them. I always thought they were kind of garbage personally. So I did like when they were like in the corners and they threw the Godwins and they do-si-do'd around and went back. I thought that part was cool. They don't ever do stuff like that anymore, ever. And they used to do that stuff all the time in tag team matches where one guy had a guy in the corner, and they don't do stuff like that. And so it was cool when they do-si-do'd around, and then that was my favorite part of the match, actually.
Yeah, the Godwins were not bad workers by any means, and the Guns weren't really either. It just felt like that this was too much about Sunny.
Cloudy, right,
and then also bringing Cloudy into it, who's not involved with the match in any way, shape, or form either. So it felt like a Raw match where they were more interested in talking about other things, and it's like that's fine for Raw. But during a pay-per-view, it's like you really need to, if you're not selling something that's like coming up later on the pay-per-view, please focus on the match, because otherwise, why did I buy this pay-per-view?
Every time, like, obviously this is years later, so every time I see Phineas, all I can think about is Streaker Midian.
Yep. So, Yeah. I mean, you could say, oh, well, Henry Godwin never really got to do anything afterward because he got hurt and couldn't really maintain his career. And it's like, yeah, okay, but at least he didn't have to be naked Midian,
And he did get to do the hog pen match with Triple H.
Yes.
Yummy.
Yeah. I actually just, that match was just featured on a Countdown from What Culture where they were talking about gimmick matches that only had one good version of that match, and they picked out, I think it was the Godwin Triple H hog pen match as one of the 10. So
Yeah.
all right, so sorry.
I agree with that.
Me too.
All right, so after that match, Doc is once again backstage, and he's probably wishing that he had a tag team partner. Where was Todd Pettengill? Wasn't he still with the company at this time? But Doc is
I
backstage.
felt like he was doing the in your house shit. Like Pettengill was always on the in your house shit.
Okay. All right, so Doc is backstage interviewing the Bulldog, Diana, Cornette, and Clarence Mason, who was, of course, one of the most worthless characters ever in my view. I never felt like he should have been there in any capacity. But anyway, Cornette makes a Dick Murdoch reference and promising Michaels that his time as champion is up. But then Vince spots Mr. Perfect in the locker room. And, of course, Mr. Perfect has been assigned as the referee for the Bulldog Michaels title match. And, so they start going crazy and all that. And Bulldog makes a comment about, well, if he was in the other dressing room, his wallet would get stolen. Okay. Bulldog cuts, cuts over the promo promising that he'll join the Triple Header Club, which meaning he'll become, world champion and go along with his previous Intercontinental and Tag Team title reigns. I don't remember that that's what they called it, Triple Header Club. But
I don't remember that being called that ever either, but that could be drunk Davey Boy Smith making up things.
Well, Davey Boy was also not a terrific promo by any means.
He was not.
I highlighted that he said this line, "You're mine in less than a few short hours away."
Yes, he did.
That's clearly somebody who's trying to say two different things and just ends up combining them into one.
The only reason that promo was even watchable is because Jim Cornette was in it. Like, I probably would have fast-forwarded through it if Jim Cornette wasn't in it.
And that's really the case. You really can't fast-forward through a Cornette promo because you just don't know what the hell he's going to say at any given moment. So
true.
And I must say, I did like when Mr. Perfect said, well, yeah, I'm the perfect referee for the perfect match.
Well, that was a little
playing
later,
off the whole.
yes.
Yes, you're right. But
no,
I did like that too.
Yeah, Perfect was always a great promo. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. He's actually one of the underrated great promo guys. So it's like when people talk about who are the best promo guys, it's like he never really quite gets mentioned in like the upper echelon, but he was pretty damn close. So
yeah.
All right, so the next match. Oh my God.
The best part of this match is Lawler coming out to the ring.
Yes, Lawler was priceless. I was like, oh my God, when the only thing I remember is at the end of it, he goes up to the two girls and he's like, this is why things like Gold Dust happen.
Yes.
Yeah. So the match is Jerry the King Lawler against the Ultimate Warrior, which had been set up by like Warrior. It had to do with Warrior's comic book, and like Lawler had drawn, and I guess Lawler really did draw this like portrait of the Warrior, and Warrior like rejected it, so Lawler hit him over the head with it, which didn't knock any sense into him, of course. But yeah, Lawler's entrance is great. He gets on the mic. He goes up to the King of the Ring podium where they've got like the crown and the scepter and the cape, and he implies that all of his stuff at his castle was better anyway. Yeah, he totally goes for all the cheap heat, insulting Milwaukee, insulting the Brewers. And then, he just goes after a ton of audience members. Yeah, he said something. He goes to one overweight woman and says, like, "What are the strip clubs closed tonight?" Yeah, and like AJ said, he insulted a couple of others, saying, "This is what
He said something to a kid about his face his neck throwing up his face or something.
Yeah, he said to the woman, it was something like, with women like this is how you get gold dust.
He was fabulous. That was the best. Joe's not lying. That was the best part of the match.
So here's my only thing. Let me interject for just one quick second. My only thing is that it went a little too long because he should have shut up by the time he got to the ring. Like he's still going when he's in the ring.
He was
it's like
going on the ring.
Like, okay, you can stop now.
They probably had, okay, we're going to do 15 minutes for this match, and they knew the match wasn't going to be 15 minutes. So they're like, Lawler, go out there and spend 5 minutes walking to the ring.
No, because it didn't last 4.
So Warrior comes out, and I got to admit, as many issues as I have with the person, Warrior, Jim Hellwig. Ultimate Warrior's entrance is still fucking fantastic.
And his gear that night was cool. Like he had cool make, everything was cool.
And it doesn't matter what era it was, and the fact that this is now the mid '90s where they've got like the little pyro light thing set up in the symbol.
That's cool. That's really cool. You're right.
They've got the symbol stuff projecting down from the ceiling into the ring.
Yeah.
It was still really cool.
Yeah.
I'll admit it. So Warrior's still doing his entrance though, but Lawler does the Pearl Harbor job, as they used to say. Starts choking at Warrior with Warrior's own ring jacket, then his own wrist tape. Basically, the match it goes like this. Lawler chokes Warrior with something for about 2 minutes. Lawler hits the pile driver. Warrior pops right back up. Warrior hits 3 clotheslines, a flying tackle, and gets the pin.
Yep.
That's the match.
He didn't even gorilla press him. I was like, what the hell?
The time of the match was 3 minutes 50 seconds. And yeah, like you said, Warrior doesn't do the press slam splash combo. Beats him after 3 clotheslines and 1 flying tackle. I would think that if I was Jerry Lawler, now I could understand if Lawler didn't want to take the press slam splash combo, because you've heard a lot of guys who didn't want to because of Warrior not being safe, or they just didn't want to get splashed on their back or whatever. But for Lawler, and again, obviously Lawler wasn't a full-time wrestler at this point, but if I'm somebody with the reputation of Jerry Lawler, do I want to get pinned by the Ultimate Warrior after 3 clotheslines and a flying tackle? I don't know. So this match was just a complete and total waste of time. Meltzer gave it a dud rating, and I'm going to reference that again.
Was that a below star, a 0?
No. See, that's the thing. I'm going to get back to that when we get to a certain match at the Bash at the Beach.
Okay.
But I want to wait until then. I want to wait until then because this is something I try to look up to find the reasoning. But again, a dud rating, and yeah, I mean, come on, this was not a match.
No.
And
no,
it's not this is years later, so we're not spoiling anything. They did bring the Warrior back because they knew they were going to use him at the end of the night. So they wanted the Warrior on this card because I knew he was coming out. Watching it the first time around, I knew he was going to come out at the end.
Yeah. So, I mean, this ended up being his last WWF pay-per-view match, which we'll briefly mention later. But yeah, the 1996 Warrior comeback was really, when you come right down to it, nothing to write home about.
It was not.
No. So the next segment, Hendricks is interviewing WWF President Gorilla Monsoon in the locker room, where you see Jake being taped up in the back. Monsoon did one of his trademarks of commentator, where he made up a body part name, or intercostal cartilage or something.
Yes.
I always love that Monsoon trademark. But he says he'll stop the match if he has to, but hey, Jake wants to compete, so who is he to stop Jake from competing?
Yeah.
Pretty succinct, to the point, and just gives you a quick little update. So, all right, the next match on the card, The Undertaker against Mankind. Now, this was actually the second time they had already wrestled on pay-per-view this year, which I kind of didn't remember because I didn't really watch WWF in 1996. Mankind's entrance was creepy because he was still really doing the deranged part of
his music was creepy back then. He had creepy music.
The original Mankind music was creepy. Now, the interesting thing is, of course, Undertaker's music hits and Paul Bearer starts walking down, but no Undertaker. Where's Undertaker? Then all of a sudden the lights come back on and Undertaker's perched up on the top turnbuckle and he hits Mankind with a clothesline and the match is on. So I thought that was neat because, AJ in particular always likes to make fun of the length of Undertaker's, entrance and everything. And even here, the entrance, I think, still took about 2 minutes from the time the music started to when the lights came back on and everything.
Well, they had to get him out from underneath the ring and onto the top rope in the dark, essentially. So
Exactly. So it's just good that they did something a little different. I thought it was because they showed the casket match from Undertaker against Goldust from the prior month, where Mankind suddenly popped out of the casket. So it was Mankind's one-upping him with a surprise entrance. So Undertaker has to get that back. So it made sense. a lot of back and forth in this match, a lot of just, hard hitting moves, a lot of stuff on the outside, a lot of Foley craziness with like the screeching that he did at the time and pulling his hair out.
That was the one thing that annoyed me about the early Mankind was the pig squeals. It like sounded like a pig squealing. Like it used to drive me nuts.
Well, again, there's something when we get to Bash at the Beach in terms of a screech that I'll say was much worse than what Foley was doing here.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I would hope so. Spoiler alert. But anyway, the finish was somewhat awkward. Mankind takes the urn away from Paul Bearer, and he's getting ready to hit Taker with it, but Bearer kind of like walks up onto the steps, and like when Mankind rears back, Bearer snatches it away from him.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Mankind tries to go after him, but then Taker starts attacking again, but then Bearer winds up ready to hit Mankind, but he kind of gets out of the way, and Taker gets hit with it. That allows Mankind to put the mandible claw back on Taker and get the pin, I guess you could say. I mean, it's really hard to tell whenever Mankind used the mandible claw if they were calling the match because it was a pin or because the other guy was knocked out. So so that was it. So that went 18 minutes and 21 seconds, which the interesting part was Owen speculating if Bearer was getting upset with The Undertaker and may have actually been siding with Mankind, which of course we know would happen 2 months later at SummerSlam.
Right, I knew it. I knew it when I was at SummerSlam. I was at that SummerSlam watching that Boiler Room Brawl, and I knew Bearer was turning. Like, I 100% knew that was coming that night.
And see, the thing of it is that you have to think that they already had that plan, like, written down.
Oh, yeah.
At this King of the Ring pay-per-view. So with Owen saying that, I almost wonder if while he's saying that, Vince is sitting there next to him with staring daggers into his eyes,
like,
saying,
shut the fuck up.
You're giving away the next part of the program, you bastard.
This match was. I really like this match, and I don't really particularly like either of them. So this match was actually really good. So I've finally seen a match. I finally seen a match that the Undertaker was in, where the match was actually good because of him.
Well, yeah, and this was early Undertaker still.
You're right.
So this was purple gloves, purple, boot covers, and the eye makeup still.
Yeah, this was at the time. This was at the time where they finally decided we need to give guys that Taker can actually work with that'll put on good matches. Because from the moment he turns face back in 1992, his feuds were Jake Roberts, Kamala, Giant Gonzalez, Yokozuna, and the Yokozuna matches. The Yokozuna matches weren't bad.
No, but
the fake Undertaker, Yokozuna again. Then he went through like all the guys in like the $1 Million Corporation. Like King Kong Bundy at WrestleMania, and Kama and IRS and a couple others. And then they finally said, okay, now you can work with Bret Hart in a title match, but then Diesel's going to screw you, so now you got to work with Diesel at WrestleMania. But then it's like, okay, we need to actually have guys that he can work with. So anyway, Meltzer gave it 3.25 stars. That feels about right to me. I might say 3.5. Because
I might even go 4 on that one. I really liked that match. So
it was intense, which it needed to be because of the way they had started the feud between them. And of course, the thing was at the end that you knew it wasn't over because Mankind started chasing Bearer to the back and Taker was struggling after them. So you knew the feud wasn't over either. So it kind of did leave you wanting more too. So that was the good thing about it.
So here was my take on that match. Like, I actually really enjoyed this match, and I'm glad I got to see it again, because early Mankind, he was real. He was never super athletic, but he could work. Like, he wasn't so heavy. Like, he was still pretty. They keep on saying he was like 300 pounds, but I'm like, he does not look like he's
for his size too.
Yes, he definitely was.
I didn't think he was 300 pounds. He looked more like maybe 275. I mean, that's not a huge difference, but still, 25 pounds does make a big difference when you're running around and wrestling.
He's a crazy son of a bitch. That's what he is.
It was always hard to tell with him because Foley's a little pear-shaped.
Yes.
His body.
Yeah.
He is. like most of his weight is really like around like his midsection and his hips.
Yes.
So.
But you could tell when he got heavy. Like, when he stopped wrestling.
Yeah.
And so that's what kind of threw me off when they were announcing. But I thought the match never had a dead point in it where you could say, okay, do something. I felt like there was always something happening within the match, and it wasn't anything super crazy. There was a couple crazy spots, but nothing that was over the top, like when they did their cage match and he got thrown off the freaking top of the cage, and that was nuts.
Well, see, that was just it. I was going to say, like, he still wasn't fully beat. I mean, he'd already been beating himself up, obviously. Well, but he wasn't, like, so broken down yet where he could, like, he was at, like, the I can barely walk stage, which we would see later in his career. Because he was still able to do the old Cactus Jack spot where he did, like, the diving elbow off the mat onto the floor. So.
Yes.
So he wasn't totally beat up yet. But again, overall, I thought it was a pretty solid match.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right, so the next segment, Doc is backstage interviewing Mr. Perfect. Doc gets in his face and says, "You were in their dressing room. This has got to be collusion." And Perfect's like, "You don't even know how to spell collusion." Don't worry, I will not ask anybody to spell it either.
I can't.
I'd take my shot, but I'm sure I'd screw it up.
Hey, that's why I said I'm not going to do it. It's not important. But anyway, he just says, yeah, he'll be the perfect referee. And the actual kind of interesting part to this is that Michaels walks in and insists that he'd better be the perfect referee. And I'm like, ooh, what's Michaels going to do to Mr. Perfect if Mr. Perfect doesn't call it down the middle? So, next match number 6, Goldust versus Ahmed Johnson for the Intercontinental title. Now, this match is built around the fact that a couple weeks prior on Raw, Ahmed had been knocked out during a match, and while they were stretchering him to the back, Goldust came and gave him CPR.
That was hilarious. Hilarious.
And I'm using air quotes for those who are just
watching that as it happened was comedy to me. Like, so.
Yeah. So again, this match is built around the fact that Ahmed flipped out after Goldust French kissed him. Yay, homophobia!
Yes.
Now, this match I thought had a good intensity at the beginning because Goldust is still in the ring and he hasn't even taken his robe and his wig off. But Ahmed doesn't even wait for the little doors at the entrance to open. He basically shoves them open, knocking down the two idiots who had to stand there open and close the things all night. Runs to the ring, starts attacking. Yeah. And starts attacking Goldust before he can take off his robe and his wig. And hey, again, if he is truly pissed off about what Goldust had done to him, I like that. I like that they're selling the story into the match. I thought that was a good touch. One thing I noticed about this as well, Ahmed wrestled with those huge hoop earrings. That seems risky. Like, I could understand a guy still. I could understand a guy still keeping like a stud in his ear. But, like, these huge hoops that could very easily get caught on something, the rope, the other guy's outfit, something, and you're getting yanked by your freaking ear, I wouldn't want to do that. So, Ahmed almost did.
Ahmed's shorts were always up his ass. Every fucking time he wrestled, he had a fucking wedgie, and it's like, wear different pants, Ahmed, please.
He always wore those thick-ass thigh pads. He had a distinctive look.
He did.
I think.
Yes, he did.
So
he
I liked him, but he wasn't good. But I just liked him. I liked his music and I liked his finisher. So I knew he sucked, but I just liked him. Yeah. So.
Well, some notes I made about the match. There was one point where, still very much at the beginning, Goldust had retreated to the outside. He was still trying to take his jacket off. Or his robe off, and Ahmed did a leap to the outside, and it looked like Goldust didn't catch him right, and it looked like Ahmed hit his head, but he got right back up, and it was on the attack. So maybe there's nothing in that head to hurt.
That's very possible.
It reminded me of the leap that the Undertaker took to get caught and almost died.
Yeah. So anytime you see the one YouTube channel I watch where they're reliving the Monday Night War, and they're in like January of '96. They were just covering a match where Benoit wrestled Savage, and there was one point where Benoit did a suicide dive to the outside and Savage moved, and Benoit kind of ended up leaping over the mat, and he kind of hit the floor right in front of the guardrail, and there was this sick thud. And it's like, you wonder why Benoit went crazy years later, and it's like, but the guy even replayed it with the sound, which he normally doesn't replay the clips with the sound on that show. And it's like, it was like a dunk, and it's like, oh my God.
Yeah.
So this wasn't that bad, but yeah. I was very gingerly like, so
Yeah,
that
like,
was just that
was really odd because I'm watching it. I'm like, isn't he supposed to go over the ring post out the thing, not
he
like
he
go to
probably
the
was.
side?
I chalk that up to his inexperience.
Yeah.
Then Goldust hits him with the steps on the outside. Not sure why there wasn't a DQ there. Maybe Marlena was distracting the referee at this point. And by the way, I got to say, Marlena, I always thought she was really hot. So
Yes.
They even made mention about how Goldust was being more vicious than normal, but this match had about 4 or 5 rest hold spots.
Mm-hmm.
Of course.
There was also one funny spot where Goldust hit Ahmed with a pile driver, and you could see Ahmed's head not hitting the mat, which of course was really the illusion they always tried to give you. And JR said that Ahmed twisted his body, and that helped him avoid taking the full effect of the pile driver. I'm like, well, that's an original. I don't think he got all of it, Jim. I don't think he got all of it. That's an original way to cover for it, I guess.
He twisted his ass was, switching to the right, so it kind of took some of the impact away.
And I know, and I'm
but
gonna
the problem
assume
was he very obviously did not twist his body.
Yes, and I'm gonna assume that Vince probably reamed out that cameraman or whoever was in control of like camera one, go to camera 1, go to camera 2. Was probably reamed out for not having a better angle to cover up the fact that the head's not supposed to hit.
they were on like the steady cam, so it's like that was a fault of the director in the truck, I would guess. Yeah. Goldust did all of his typical theatrics, which of course were a big heat magnet at the time. He went for the CPR move again.
It was awesome.
And that basically caused Ahmed to hulk up. Ahmed gets right up, hits one spine buster, hits the Pearl River plunge, and gets the pin, and is the new Intercontinental Champion. Match went a total of 15 minutes, 34 seconds. Meltzer gave it 2 stars. I thought it was a little bit better than that. I mean, I've not seen a lot of Ahmed Johnson matches, but I felt this one was probably one of his better efforts.
Maybe 2.5, maybe 2.5.
The crowd, I felt, was pretty much into it. They wanted to see the title change. Mm-hmm. And then there was another one of those fun Coliseum video exclusives where Ahmed goes to the back and a bunch of faces are there celebrating, pouring champagne on him.
The Bushwhackers.
Yeah, the Bushwhackers were still there. And HBK, walks up and gives him a hug and everything. So it's like, I wonder if this will mean something later.
Yes.
Yeah, and also right before that Coliseum video exclusive, there was a very weird ad for the next In Your House event, which was called International Incident. Some guy gets abducted by aliens, and when he says he's got to watch WWF, the aliens suddenly want to watch WWF.
That's weird.
Too.
That was weird.
And then when they see Sonny, they're like, this specimen requires further examination. And all of a sudden, Sonny teleports into the house.
And the kid was like, whoa.
I don't know who the fuck was on crack coming up with that one.
That one was weird.
I almost thought that was like a visual of one of the Warriors, promos.
Yes. Maybe.
Guy,
from Parts Unknown, we were seeing Parts Unknown.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Because I know he was there at the time, I'll blame that on Russo. But any other thoughts on Ahmed and Goldust?
So I have notes for every match, but this one, I thought it was a decent match. I did like the comeback, and I like how it got started because I like the fact I always enjoyed Goldust. I always thought it was creepy, but I always enjoyed it.
Yeah.
When he's like slowly slithering up on Ahmed Johnson, like he's gonna try and hump him or something like that, and then he does the CPR thing. I thought that was awesome. It gave a real good reason for the comeback. The one thing I take away from Ahmed Johnson, because I didn't really see him a lot when he was active in the WWE, he is just a power move guy. Like everything is power moves, like except for the leap. That's not really a normal power guy move, but everything was power moves. So that was the one drawback for me because that made it look more like a normal big man match, considering Dustin Rhodes, who is Goldust, is so good in the ring. That takes away from that overall match for me.
Yeah, I mean,
he was
better work from Ahmed would have been nicer.
Ahmed was like I said, I liked him, but he was like, I definitely have heard that he wasn't safe. There were issues with him safe, and he wasn't the most reliable person either. So
that's what I was going to say is that you look at Ahmed Johnson there in 1995, 1996 when he first started and everything. You know, you can hear Vince go, "Just look at him," you know. And you could also see where you could definitely push that guy to the moon. And your hope, of course, is that he'll get better as he goes along.
That did not happen with him.
That's right. That's what didn't happen. And there was like stuff like he was injury prone. He hurt other guys too. And that it sounded like he got a big ego about himself.
He definitely did.
I think Jim Cornette's told one story where they wanted to book him for some like NWA independent show in like the early 2000s or maybe even the late 90s. And he refused to show up because they would not drive him to the arena where they were holding the show. And the arena where they were holding the show, I think, was like a fucking high school gym in New Jersey, because they would not drive him from the hotel to the school in a limo. He no-showed.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. So he got a big ego.
It's almost like the Ultimate Warrior inadvertently rubbed off on him.
Yeah.
So the other thing I liked about this match was the commentary. Some of the spots in the commentary, like when Owen Hart, Jim Ross says, "Would you like to be fondled?" You know, he's talking about being fondled by Goldust, and then Owen Hart chimes in. He's like, "Well, have you ever been fondled?" And I don't think you.
They also made reference to Goldust having done something to Owen, which I don't remember, but Owen's was insistent that they talked it over and they worked it out and all this other stuff. But there was that tone of defensiveness in Owen's voice, so.
Yes. I enjoyed that part of the match too. It made for fun.
Yeah, but like you said, I mean, like Goldust was edgy, and when you come right down to it, I mean, the Attitude Era didn't officially start. A lot of people want to put the start of the Attitude Era is like WrestleMania 14 when Austin beat Michaels for the title. But even at this point, there was a lot of like proto Attitude Era stuff. Goldust was, Austin was, you know, when Austin says, you know, Austin 316 says, "I just whipped your ass."
I mean, Jerry Lawler coming out and doing that shit with the crowd. That was like Attitude Era stuff.
I mean, a lot of stuff with Mankind. So a lot of that was like really proto Attitude. The way that they were starting to use sexuality more with Sonny, and that they would with Marlena and Sable as well, but it was especially Sonny at this point. So there was a lot of proto Attitude Era stuff on this card.
Yes.
And that brings us into our next segment, which really continued the proto Attitude Era when Brian Pillman comes limping down to the ring to be Brian Pillman.
Yep.
JR gets on the mic, and Pillman, still perfecting that loose cannon character, first asks JR how his extended family is, and then says he doesn't give a damn about his family. He swears a couple of times. He refers to Jeffrey Dahmer, saying he should have eaten the whole city. He just looks and sounds crazy with that wide-eyed look that he had, the way the hair kind of dangled in front of his face, the way it almost like Kurt Cobain. And then he promised that he would rape, pillage, and plunder the entire Federation. And he just starts laughing maniacally. I got to tell you, I loved the loose cannon Brian Pillman character.
That promo was fabulous.
The fact that nobody knew what he was going to do. You know, the unfortunate part, of course, this was after his car accident and his ankle had been fused, which completely changed the type of wrestler he was. And, you know, I think probably in a lot of ways probably contributed to his untimely death the following year. It's ruined.
I think it ruined him mentally. The car accident fucked him up in the head even more than he already kind of was.
Yeah, I think he was just over self-medicating to get through the pain, which I'm sure was terrible. So there's just they could have done so much with that character. And when
him and Austin glanced at each other, that's what
I was gonna say. So then the next match is like Pillman's like still finishing up Austin's music hits. So he comes back out for the King of the Ring final against Jake. Austin and Pillman patched each other in the aisle, and what I thought was great about it is Pillman did like a throat slash motion at Austin as if he was encouraging him to kill Jake. And Austin just basically
blew him off.
Just kind of looked at him, and it's like, oh, whatever. Now, obviously, they were not going to reference the Hollywood Blondes on WWF, but it also kind of planted some of the seeds for some of the stuff that would happen between Austin and Pillman later on that year. Right. So,
and if you watched, I caught this. Funny enough, I caught this. The guy that doesn't pay attention to the details. Pillman smiles ever so slightly as he turns away, like it's barely caught. But if you watch, he has like this slotted smile,
like a shit-eating grin, yeah.
Yeah, like almost breaking kayfabe because he's, him and Austin are actually friends and stuff like that, and were teammates at one time.
Well, considering, again, he was the loose cannon, nobody knew where he was coming from at any given moment, hey, you could pass that off as anything anyway. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so the match begins. As soon as Jake comes into the ring, Austin attacks him, starts just going after the ribs relentlessly, beats him down. Monsoon comes down to the ring. It looks like he's going to stop the match. Jake refuses to let him stop the match. And as soon as Monsoon vacates the ring, Roberts actually gets a couple things of offense in. This infuriates Owen on commentary, saying Monsoon gave Jake an advantage.
Yes, which was awesome.
He goes for the DDT, but Austin blocks it, rams him into the corner, hits a few of those good old, shoulder blocks into the corner. A move that you don't see anymore, which really should in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And then Austin gets the stunner and the win. And then Steve Austin ascends the podium to talk to Doc Hendricks, and history is made.
The magic begins.
Now,
and that's the bottom line, because Stone Cold said so.
If you haven't seen this promo, you have to see this promo. It is, in retrospect, I don't think anybody knew at the moment. I don't think anybody knew for a few months afterwards. But this ends up being one of the most significantly historic moments in all of wrestling history.
And supposedly it was on the fly. Like, he didn't script this. Like, he didn't necessarily, he didn't script the 316 part. Like, maybe in his head he knew he was going to say something. But so according to everything I've read, this promo was on the fly.
Yeah, so this is the kind of thing that I don't think he'd ever see happen in 2020 wrestling. But, he runs Jake down saying that, he's washed up, he's over the hill, he's past his prime, get that piece of crap out of my ring. He says you thumped your Bible, it didn't get you anywhere.
That was awesome.
Yes.
Talk about your Psalms, talk about your John 3:16. Austin 3:16 says, I just whipped your ass. And as soon as he says it, there's this not overwhelming ovation,
but there's a pop.
There's a pop from the crowd. So you get the sense that some people there were like, fuck yeah. Now, as we all know, it took WWF quite some time before they really fully realized what they had here.
Yes.
Steve Austin wins King of the Ring. Okay. The first three King of the Ring winners were Bret Hart, Owen Hart, and Mabel. Owen Hart and Mabel both kind of parlayed those King of the Ring wins into getting title shots at SummerSlam that same year. Do you remember who Steve Austin wrestled at SummerSlam 1996?
He fought Yokozuna in a dark match.
Exactly.
I was there.
Dark match. They still didn't even know 2 months after making him King of the Ring, and he wasn't even on the SummerSlam card.
So, just so you guys know, in the dark match, Yokozuna tried to climb up on the ropes, and he broke the top rope. So they had to finish the match with the top rope. He tried to climb up there to do the bonsai drop, and he broke the top rope.
Yeah,
the only reason I know the answer to that, Pat, is because I was at the pay-per-view, so I clearly saw the dark match.
he was just way too heavy at that point. So now, quick little postscript before we move on to the main event match. Everybody knows that Hunter Hearst Helmsley was scheduled to win the 1996 King of the Ring, but because of the curtain call incident at Madison Square Garden the prior month, he was punished and he was basically taken out of the King of the Ring spot. Now, he would go on to win the 97 King of the Ring, and I think in the long run, it all worked out for everybody involved,
I think it did.
Especially the company.
Yeah.
Now you might say then, what did Hunter Hearst Helmsley do at King of the Ring 1996? Well, he wrestled a dark match. He beat Aldo Montoya in 3 minutes.
He beat Just Incredible.
Yeah. There was also a free-for-all match before the pay-per-view where the Body Don is, with their new manager, Cloudy, beat the New Rockers of Marty Jannetty and Leif Cassidy, also known as Al Snow, in 8 minutes and 6 seconds. I don't know why they ever thought the New Rockers would work. Anytime you try to do the new something, it
like the new foundation with Owen and Jim Neidhart.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then or like you'd get like the new Blackjacks later on, or like the new Midnight Express, if you will.
LOD 2000.
Oh,
Yeah. So. Yeah.
So here was the interesting thing, because I know what match I know the match we're going to, but I thought it was very interesting that Owen Hart, I'm pretty sure I heard him say it at least 2 times. He referred to Shawn Michaels in the Click, like during the.
Yeah, I was gonna get to that here as we get moved on to the main event.
Yes, I know, but I thought that was very interesting, considering I'm sure Vince was not happy that he was probably saying the Click, considering that was kind of a backstage type thing.
Well, yes and no, and yeah. So
just the Jake Stone Cold match was not very good. No, it was a crummy match.
It wasn't much of a match. I mean, Meltzer gave it half a star.
Deserving of a half a star.
Austin saved everything about King of the Ring with his promo. He saved everything. The King of the Ring was kind of a train wreck, in my opinion, the actual tournament, but Austin saved everything when he won and cut that promo.
Yeah, it was, the match ended up officially going 4 minutes, 28 seconds. So, I mean, again, it was not much of a match. There was not much doubt, I don't think, ever as to who was going to win. And unfortunately, if you don't have much doubt about who's going to win, it takes away. But again, the promo saves it. So, all right, so moving on to the main event. We got the excuse me, the WWF title match between Shawn Michaels and the British Bulldog. Shawn Michaels comes down with Jose Lothario. British Bulldog's got both his wife Diana, Owen's sister, and Jim Cornette with him. Not Clarence Mason though. That's fine though. Now this match was like basically a rematch from Beware of Dog, where there was a controversial finish where 2 referees counted down both guys' shoulders. So. Yep. That's why
Beware of Dog, the infamous In Your House with the power outage.
Yep, very much so. So Mr. Perfect comes down as a special referee. They replay the ending of that previous Michaels Bulldog match. Bulldog comes down. He's still using the old Rue Britannia music, and I got to be honest, I always found it interesting that they never came up with new music for Bulldog to use when he turned heel. It seemed to me like he probably should have stopped using like the Rue Britannia music at that point, but
agreed.
I don't know. It was also kind of the way they still were using the old, the Rocket Owen Hart music for Owen throughout all of these years, and they didn't give him new music until I think like 98 when he was like the Black Heart and everything. So
yeah,
I always found that kind of interesting. All right, so then Michaels comes down, and yes, Vince McMahon starts talking about the Click. Now, the Click became the de facto name for Michael's fan base, the way that you would use the term Hulkamaniacs or the Warriors.
Yeah.
Or, well, those are really the only 2 I can think of.
Yeah, pretty much.
I will freely admit, though, I kind of hated the whole Click thing. I really thought it was very, very stupid because we knew it was a backstage thing. I don't know why Vince was okay with them using that in such a public way. I really kind of felt like Michaels, I think, had a certain sway over Vince at various times, and I think this was one of those times.
Mm-hmm.
Where he was able to convince Vince to let him do what he wanted.
They also started, I felt like they started calling his fan base the Click before that other thing happened, the Madison Square Garden thing, though. So at that point, you can't really change what you're doing. Like if they had been doing it at a different time, but they were already calling them that before the Madison Square Garden, so it's really hard to change what you're calling his fans all of a sudden then.
Oh, no, I think they were definitely doing it from pretty much the moment he turned face in 95. But I also remember when he came out for the Royal Rumble 95, when he's still a heel, he came out at number 1. He holds up like his fist, to the camera, and it's got TK written on the tape, the Click. So I just always think that he was just always kind of looking to kind of push the envelope to where he wanted it to go, to do what he wanted to do, because that's just the way he was then. So. All right, but this match is pretty long.
Yes, it was.
They also changed Mr. Perfect's role, too.
Yes. Monsoon comes down and relegates Mr. Perfect to being an outside referee only.
because of what he did at WrestleMania when he was the special guest referee for Luger.
JR mentions his WrestleMania 10 referee performance where he did a shit. Well, see, the thing was, he technically did the right thing in that match, but it was because, it ended up favoring the heel that everybody hated it.
Of course.
Yeah, but Luger put his hands on him, and you're not supposed to put your hands on an official.
I liked that that they referenced that, though. I think it's important that they referenced, hey, this is why he's getting moved to this other position. Because if JR hadn't have said that, if you're not watching all the time, you don't know what's going on then. So I think it's cool that they
And it had to be more than just, oh, he was in Bulldog's locker room. They had to also give another legitimate reason. Now, of course, they also had to dance around the fact that they got one of the guys in the match that they were referring to is now in the other company. So, but anyway, so this one again had a lot of good back and forth, both men gaining and losing the advantage at several times. There was actually a spot where Bulldog was using the ropes for leverage when he had Michaels in a submission hold, and Perfect actually knocked his hand off the rope, and Cornette starts yelling at him, but Perfect's like, what do you want me to do? The crowd chanted USA at various points in this match. Just, oh god.
And they did warn. I felt like sometime during this match, they're like, you're just a commentator. You're not allowed to get involved tonight. Like they said that to Owen during this match.
Like they were suspecting Owen was going to get involved. He's like, he doesn't need your help. He's got Diana and Cornette on the outside, and Mr. Perfect's there too, and we can't trust him. And
everybody, I think, if you were watching that at that point, even like me, I knew he was going to get involved.
Yeah, of course. So. It ended up being a really, really good match. Again, a lot of back and forth. There was a lot of suspenseful spots. There were a couple spots where you could go, oh shit, Davey Boy's actually going to win.
Good in-ring work for that, storytelling.
Yeah.
That's the part for that.
Right. And it ends up that Mr. Perfect really doesn't play much of a part in it. There's one point where he gets up on the ropes where it looks like he's ready to call for Michael submitting, but that doesn't happen. And then it's like, for whatever reason, he gets in the ring to count the pin along with Hebner, and Owen pulls him out.
I was confused by that. I was like, what?
So the ending of the match had a little bit too much going on for it. There was no need for Perfect to jump into the ring to count the pin. I'm not sure what it was, but again, Michaels gets the pin clean. Match ends up going 26 minutes and 25 seconds. So they gave him a lot of time. And then, of course, all the shenanigans after the match. Owen jumps in. Owen and the Bulldogs start beating Michaels down. Then Ahmed Johnson runs in to try to even the score. And then Vader runs in, so Camp Cornette is complete. And then the Ultimate Warrior, wearing the ring jacket again for some reason.
Of course.
Did he ever take it off from the match?
Yes, he did.
So they set up, for me at the time, they set up this really cool. I was excited because I like Michaels, I like the Warrior, and I like Ahmed. So I'm excited because I'm like, and then Warrior is a douche, and they end up having to replace him with Sid at the next pay-per-view because Warrior's a douche again. And I was like, oh my God, I get to see the three guys I really like the most in a 6-man tag on a team together.
Right. So that was the whole thing, was that at this point, I think as a way to try to basically sell people to to buy like the In Your House pay-per-view, they would basically try to set up the main event for the In Your House at the end of the
they did that a lot at this time. Yes, they were doing that every pay-per-view.
And so they had another one of those Coliseum video exclusives where they said, oh yes, we've just confirmed it's going to be Shawn Michaels, Ahmed Johnson, and the Ultimate Warrior against Camp Cornette in the main event of International Incident. And then they went backstage with another promo with Camp Cornette and Owens. You can tell this was taped later because Owen is now wearing jeans.
There was a part during the match where Shawn Michaels hits Jim Cornette in the ass with a tennis racket, right?
That was entertaining. Yeah.
Yes, that was fucking comedy.
Yeah. So they do a typical promo, which was just basically to again sell the next pay-per-view and everything. Meltzer gave the match 4.25 stars. Yeah, it was a good match.
That was the best match at that pay-per-view.
Yes.
I have it as a classic match.
I mean, I don't want to say by far, but it clearly was the best.
I mean, it was that match and the Undertaker Mankind matches. You were right. You said those were the two best matches there. I think that those were the two best matches there.
Yeah, the way I always looked at this card was you had two really good matches, those two okay matches, the Austin Marrow and Goldust Ahmed matches, and then the rest was
And a bunch of really good between Pillman, Austin, and Jerry Lawler. You had three pretty good.
Great mic work.
You had some really great mic work at this one.
Yeah. So any other thoughts on the main event?
I think Bulldog, because I always picture Bulldog as kind of a power move guy, which he did do power moves, but I think he kind of held his own, because I think with working with Michaels, he had to work a little bit differently. And I think he held his own, which made that match so much better, because if he would have just did power moves and it just would have been power moves against the finesse guy, it would have looked really stupid as far as an overall match.
Bulldog was not always sober, but he was really good with Michaels and Bret Hart and any of those guys. He usually let those guys, they would put him in programs with guys like Michaels and Bret and guys who were good ring generals, because Bulldog was fine as long as somebody was carrying him. He wasn't the guy that was to be the ring general, though. Disaster usually happened when Bulldog was that guy in a match.
Yeah.
I mean, like Bret, like everybody talks about the SummerSlam '92 match, and Bret has said that like as soon as the Bulldog kind of ignored him for like most of the summer when Bret wanted to plan stuff out, so they went over it all like the night before, and then they get in the ring the next night, and like 2 minutes in, Bulldog whispers to him like, "I've forgotten everything." So. And they still put on an absolute classic.
Well, that says something about Bret Hart too. That match.
Would you guys rate the whole pay-per-view?
Well, not to
C-.
steal somebody. Well, yeah, I don't want to steal somebody else's gimmick, so I would say C+ somewhere in there.
I gave it a C-.
Like
to a C.
A lot of people, I think, want to think of 1995, 1996 WWF as being like the company's like low point in a lot of ways. And it was, and you can see why in a lot of ways. But at the same time, I would say, this show was not terrible.
I give it a B-. Two really good matches and the mic work. I give it a B-.
Okay.
All right, so
there was I remembered something too, guys. I remembered something from an earlier match. I didn't write notes down. I should have. In the match with the Smoking Guns and the Godwins, there's a spot where Billy Gunn he goes to do a stinger splash and he hits his head like past the turnbuckle and he sells the shit out of it. Like he lands and flops like backwards. I wanted to say something because when I was watching, I was like, holy shit, he's oversold the shit out of that.
Yes.
Yeah, no, he definitely did.
Billy Gunn's always been a pretty decent seller.
It was almost like a reverse flare flop. He almost did like a reverse flare flop.
All right, so I have a stumper question I want to ask, but before we do that, Jeremy, do you have a public service announcement for us?
Yes, I do. I do have a public service announcement. We just want to thank all our listeners out there. Doesn't matter where you're catching us. We do appreciate you tuning in. And if our UK listeners are listening, we appreciate you keep it coming back. We do appreciate that, to have people in other countries hearing us. So that's pretty cool. If you are catching us on YouTube, though, make sure you are hitting the like, hitting your subscribe button, and also turning on those notifications so you never miss an episode. If you're catching us on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, thank you for listening in there. And catch us on Twitter, and that is at the number 4 Guys with a Z Roundtable. You can catch some of our interactions that we do. And always, always, always stay tuned to the end of the show, which will be coming up after we talk about Bash at the Beach, to tune into the Mount Rushmore of today's theme, and it's going to be our favorite match from either Bash at the Beach or King of the Ring 96.
All right, so my stumper question has to do with the King of the Ring itself. Now, King of the Ring ran as a pay-per-view from 1993 to 2002. Mm-hmm. So I'm looking at just that period. So all the King of the Ring house show events they did prior to 1993 and all the King of the Ring events they've done on television after 2002 are not included in this.
Okay.
So from 1993 to 2002, including TV qualifying matches, a total of 95 different wrestlers competed for King of the Ring.
Okay.
Who competed in the most?
Like King of the Ring tournaments or matches?
Tournaments.
Okay.
Man.
What time frame is this again?
1993 to 2002. So only think about guys who were in the company those years. And I'll also give you this hint. The answer was not on the King of the Ring 96 card in any way. So I have not mentioned his name once.
I would have to say, I'm going to say Bret Hart. I think Bret Hart actually might have competed in the most.
Okay.
Because I know he was there in the 2000s. He left pretty late to go to WCW. I'm going to say Bret Hart. This is so intense. These guys think so much about this.
So you said it's somebody we have not talked about yet.
We have not talked about him at all.
Okay.
Like, his name has literally not been mentioned.
Okay.
Well, then I've guessed wrong. Because we did say Bret Hart at one point in time.
Did we? I don't remember.
Not as part of the card, just in general.
No, we said Bret Hart's name.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, I can tell you, Jeremy, unfortunately, that Bret Hart is wrong. He only competed in one King of the Ring, the first one.
Wow, the first one.
Which he won.
Yeah, man, I would have thought he would have competed. I could have swore he competed in more, but yeah, well. Yeah, well.
He competed in a bunch of the ones, again, that they did as like house show events in the 80s and early 90s, and I think he even won one of those, too. But yeah, when it was a pay-per-view, he was only in the King of the Ring tournament the one time.
Okay. So don't go with Bret Hart, guys.
Yeah, good guess, because he was definitely a key player in those years.
There's just so many guys to pick from. It's like, who could it be?
Yeah, I mean, I did say 95 people, so. All right, I'll also give you this.
It's a huge gap, too.
He did not win the King of the Ring ever.
Okay. Because I knew what my second guess was going to be, but then when you said that, I was like, nope, that's not him then either.
Who was your second guess?
Triple H.
Triple H competed.
Because he won it the next year.
He competed in 3 different King of the Rings, including winning in '97. Yeah. It was not him.
Yeah, I don't know. That's crazy.
I'm gonna say Rikishi. I don't really know the answer to this. I'm gonna say Rikishi.
Okay. Joe, you got a guess?
I was gonna say Angle, but then you said. But then I was like, I don't know if that would work. But then you said he never won, so I can't pick Angle.
Yeah, Kurt Angle only ever competed in 2. The one he won, and then the one where he lost in the finals to Edge. So, and Rikishi is not the answer either. Rikishi only ever competed in 1, which I believe is when he lost to Angle in the finals.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
I don't know. I'm gonna say X-Pac. I fucking know.
Well, Joe, I got to give you credit. X-Pac is second on the list.
Oh wow.
The 1-2-3 kid / X-Pac competed in 5 different King of the Ring tournaments.
Wow.
But the all-time leader in King of the Ring tournament appearances with 7. Thurman Plugg / Bob Holly / Hardcore Holly.
He was my other guest too. Damn it.
He competed in 7 different tournaments using any one of those 3 names, depending upon what year it was.
Damn it.
And you know what?
He was my other guest.
You know what? If you want to put a label on somebody, Bob Holly could almost be called the ultimate jobber because he really never amounted to anything, but he was always a good enough worker to be in matches with good name people.
That's a good question, Pat. Damn, like I said, that was my second answer. Damn it.
Yep.
I just remember X-Pac being in several of them, and he went to the finals and lost.
Yeah, he lost in the. I think he lost in the final to Billy Gunn in 1999.
Yeah, that's right.
Actually, you know what? When I was coming up with this stumper question the other day, I actually copied the tournament brackets. Let me check that. Yes, he lost in the tournament final to Billy Gunn in '99. So,
yeah,
good one, Pat. We all had guesses at least. So,
So are we going to
All
talk
right.
about Bash at the Beach
Good
now?
work.
Is it time
Yeah.
for Bash at the Beach?
Yeah,
All
so
right.